I hope this finds you well. I I am going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation, and it is titled "What It Means to Grow Up Scared. Think of the Future. Be kind to people." My name is Joey Mendoza, and this is from spring semester of 2023 in the class of Race, Power, Gender in America in Skyline College in San Bruno, California. Firstly, what are human rights? We are born with these rights, and human rights basically just tells what people are free to choose for themselves, and that includes freedom of speech, freedom of justice, freedom of education, and it is basically what people are deserving of, which is freedom, and this is for every person. So this image has multiple colors, and that is something that I really want to focus in this presentation, is how each person has different colors and how unique that is, and how we should celebrate and respect each other's human rights. And the theme of this presentation is very much based on everybody's colors and how every person is equated to equal amounts of freedom. How are human rights different to civil rights? This involves civil rights involves rights that are attained by being an official legal member of a respective political state or nation. So this is something that people have fought for before. Other than human rights, there have been civil rights movements, and this is a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. and how he walked with fellow people to fight for civil rights. And this is something that is very meaningful for people also, because as well as human rights, we also have to think about the legality of these rights and how people can think of their area respectively and navigate their way through their nation, because of how different countries are and how different the law systems in those countries are. So we have to think about civil rights as well as human rights. And this all equates to what kids will see in the television. So my first project that I was going to talk about is the social justice t-shirt design. And to the left, this is an image of the front, and it has a bunch of kids lined up, very diverse, from their very diverse groups, and it says, "How we act is their future." I wanted to reflect on how we talk about race and racial justice with younger people and with people in our own social groups, as we are very large influences on the upcoming generations, and we have to think about race very thoughtfully. And because in the back of the t-shirt, like on the right, I said that they are watching, so be kind, because kids are very susceptible, and yes, they are very aware of people's actions. And if people are very hateful on shows and the news that they consume, then they will look down on other people's cultures and may even look down on their cultures. As some shows, a lot of shows actually have, especially back then, have characters that are predominantly white, and sometimes there is cruelty and oppression being put forward, characters of color or whoever they see on the news who are of color, who are people of color. And this entertainment can play in the background, and we may not even know that kids are listening to these messages that they will pick up and they will portray in their daily lives as they grow up. So this cycle of hatred may continue. Um, as we've seen in history, there have been so many hateful acts done to people of color, and so small minded ideas may lead to wrongful actions um, based on just how people look like. And this is taught at a very young age, so we need to teach them their rights, but also how to respect others' rights, because we are all equal as people. And this relates to the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, because I, as an Asian person, very much related to this lesson that we had, because this was when Chinese people were driven out so that they couldn't take American resources, and this is up to jealousy or just white people wanting to put down people of color. And as you can see in this picture, the white man is basically kicking this Chinese or Asian person, and they made this Asian person have very distorted features, and their hair is very pointed. They really wanted to highlight how different and little they look compared to this man. And so I wanted to say that actions will lead to altered mindsets. So hateful actions will lead to mindsets that um, may involve harmful ideas containing racism, and how these racist mindsets will lead to narratives which will be spread to justify racism and the dominance of white ideals. And the scope of these racist narratives are very wide, and they still exist today. And that was basically so that there's less space for other cultures to exist or to be respected. And the overwhelming spread of Western ideals in the media. So whiteness is something that basically says how important white people are, and their practices and their customs and beliefs, and how other groups are going to be compared against that. And this very much leads to one's identity being based on their race, and this could be very harmful since, as we've seen um, in the previous example, how other races are very much put down. So when their race is put down, their self-identity is put down. And the cycle of racism in the media will impact their self-worth and self-perception. So in my next project, I talked about, in my project Social Justice Children's Book, I talked about my personal experiences as an Asian immigrant moving to America at a young age, and it was called Annie Leigh's Worst Day Ever, Becoming Valedictorian. So when the main character was like a little girl, she always just loved school, and she skipped to get to school because she wanted to get there as soon as possible, and her parents were very loving. But when she did go to school, she noticed how people were very envious of how she just loved school so much, and she just was very enthusiastic, and so she got good grades. And even though she tried very hard and she enjoyed school, she still felt very sad, as seen in this right picture. And that I wanted to also talk about how white culture is celebrated. And so there may be trust put forward to those who may not value human rights and respect your right to exist. And if that is just if we just let it be, there will be no change. So it's better to just speak up against it. So she basically saw on the TV how she should trust the people who may not mean well to her because of how they look like, because in the media she saw that they were trustworthy and how valued their culture is. So she kind of simulated that into her life and saw their culture as very respected. So she just trusted this person who she thought was going to be nice to her. And she pleased them to make it easier, but it's actually better to recognize wrongs at the first get go and hold those wrongs accountable. And that mean person plotted against her, and they tried to trick her into going to like a fake birthday party. And Annie Lay, the main character, was so excited to be included into um, the dominant group in her school that she immediately said yes. And they said go into this back room, and she was eventually left alone by her trusted friend, quote unquote trusted, and she just patiently waited for the longest time, and she asked herself as the hours went by, how much is too much until it is no longer okay? And she was very patient. Had so much hope because of what she saw in the media and how whiteness is just so valued. So she wanted to also value that. And there is hope in the world. It's not just all mean people. For example, this butler, Pachaco, on the left, he was very helpful towards Annie. And on the right, there are the mean people who tried to kind of trick her and make her feel less than just because she was getting better grades than them and going to a better university. So there is the observant people who want to see different changes in race and how that impacts people treating others. And then there are those who just persist in their negative mindsets to continue the cycle of just racism. And um, after the butler helped her and said, so to for her to go home, she felt very sad, and I wanted to portray the image of hope in this story, so I included the moon. And in Chinese culture, this basically shows strength while also being gentle towards one's emotions. And that is something that I wanted to put forward in the face of racism and being just very bold against it and loud in your individual colors, since fear will allow fearful people who are scared of integration and diversity, will allow them to push the narrative of certain races being bad, and will keep that whiteness intact, which is how dominant groups stay quote unquote good. So she eventually, after some time in the train, she let her emotions out and accepted that things will get better because they can be better, and it doesn't matter if people try to push you out of who you are or what achievements you have. They should not push you away from your true self. You can find your true self again. And she faced the mean girl, and she just kind of reminded her that she is worthy of what she's achieved in life, and she just didn't understand, and she tried to understand why the mean girl was treating her this way. And so open communication is very important. And so this leads to my final project, protest art. So I wanted to consider geopolitics as well, because it's different in many different countries, and some people may not be allowed to speak up, and being scared is the only option. But I wanted to remind people that being scared is not freedom, and that there are colorful and happy aspects to showing your true colors, because there will be people who will stand with you and it's important to show your colors, um, and other people will recognize that, as seen in this main image on the bottom right. There's many different groups of people out there, and they will know what is right, and because other groups of people know what it is to be put down by the dominant group, and what it means to be called quote unquote degenerates. And so I wanted to remind people that coexisting does not equal freedom, and we have to think of the future generations and how their future will play out, because systems are put in the society so that, for example, some schools will make it so that their students will go to prison, which is called the school to prison pipeline. And so I wanted to just change the mentality towards that and think of the future and change the future, because imperialism incites fear. Imperialism is when ruling powers are very hungry for dominance, as we've seen with whiteness, and they want to expand their culture and forcibly dominate other regions. But people should just be themselves, and they should practice what they believe in, as seen in this picture on the top right. There's very different religions out there from different countries, with different groups of people involved in that. It doesn't matter what you look like, you can believe in what you like. And I just wanted to remind people through this poster that it is okay to believe in what you like, and show your true colors, because hiding will just not be beneficial in the future. So this is a moment for discussion, and these are some questions that I can put to you to discuss, because what recent events or experiences has encouraged you to ponder on the aspect of race? What emotions do you attach with your identity, racial identity, or any aspect of your identity? Where do you look to for pride on one's culture, gender orientation, etc.? Do you celebrate or respect every person's unique individuality? This is just to be aware of what one's beliefs are. I'll just have a few seconds on this page. Okay, and then this is my reference list. These are the resources I used. And thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a good night, good day, whenever you find this. Thank you.